So I'm going to try this whole screen recording out. I'm going to try and walk you guys through how to create a Google form, link it to a Google Sheet, and do a couple other things so that you can use Google to keep track of student data. Um, we'll see how this goes. You're probably going to hear my dog snoring in the background, but we'll go ahead and get started. So we're going to use Google Chrome because Google products just work better on Google Chrome. You can use other web browsers, but sometimes they kind of get a little bit wonky. Not terrible, they do work, but my favorite is Google Chrome. So that's what we're going to do. When you get started, you're going to want to start off in your Google Drive. Sorry, my computer's being super slow. We're going to get through this as best we can. So, this is kind of where we're going to start. And to begin, I always like to start a new folder so that I can keep things a little bit organized. Otherwise, it gets all cluttered and makes a mess, and it's complicated. So, I'm going to start new. And folder. And I'm going to call this folder student data. And we're just going to create that. So there's my new folder that I created, and I'm going to start out by opening that folder because anything that you do while that folder is open, anything that you create will automatically generate in this folder. So now I want to start by creating my form. I'm going to go new again and more, and I want to create a Google form. So for me, I title all of my forms with student initials just because then you're not you don't have student names anywhere on any of this information, but it's easy to keep track of. So we will title this form AZ data. And if you just click up here where it says untitled form, it automatically titles that what you wrote in down here. So this is what we're going to start with. The first question, and the one of the questions that's most important to me, I always do date. And when you type in date, it automatically uses this drop-down menu to give you this deal that will prompt anybody filling this out for the date. So what I then like to do is create new sections for each goal. So say that you have a math goal. You're going to create a new section for math. You can create new sections for reading, writing, social skills, whatever goals that you're trying to keep track of. And I like to do it in different sections just because, again, it keeps it a little bit more organized. So we're going to work with this math section. And I don't know if your guys' IEPs are written the same as ours are. Each of our goals has the overall goal and then multiple benchmarks. So the overall goal is a math goal. You know, you'll have benchmark, your first benchmark. So that might be adding. Your second benchmark might be subtracting. Your third benchmark might be multiplication, whatever those benchmarks are. So now the thing that I like to do is I like to change each of these questions. They auto-populate as multiple choice, but I want short answer because what I want to be able to do is type in a percentage. So I change all of these and make sure that right here, here, and here it says short answer. So again, if you have multiple goals, you know, reading, writing, whatever, you're going to continue to create new sections for each of those goals. Or If you just want to keep track of one benchmark, you can always just make a section for, math, and then just keep track of your first benchmark. However you want to do that. This is just what works easiest for me. So once this form is filled out for this particular student, I might have 3 or 4 sections that all look similar to this depending on what goals are. Once this is created, I'll show you what it looks like when you're actually filling out this form. To see what your form actually looks like, click on this preview. So if I were actually going in here to record student data, this is where I would go. And obviously, like I said, it prompts you for the date because I put that question in. So I'll put today's date, click next. And this is where having different sections is advantageous. Each section will come up separately. So obviously this section is the math section. I can come in here and fill out math data. So say benchmark 1 student received, I don't know, a 70% on. Benchmark 2, 65, benchmark 3, 60. If there were more sections, this would say, I think, like next, but since we only put the one section, we're done with this, filling this out, and we'll hit submit. That will automatically, once we create the spreadsheet, that will automatically send this data to a spreadsheet, and I'll show you how that works. It's super handy. So now we're going to go back here. We'll close that. To link this form to a spreadsheet, it's pretty easy. So right here you have this little tab that says responses. We're going to click there. And we're going to click this little green doohickey. So I want all of my student data going to one spreadsheet. Each student will get their own page, but I don't want to have to open up multiple spreadsheets to get to multiple student data. So the very first time I do this, so with the very first student, I'm going to create a new spreadsheet. Every student form that I create from this point forward, I will link to an existing spreadsheet. So this spreadsheet is going to be my student data responses. This will create this spreadsheet called student data responses and link this form to that spreadsheet, and I'll show you how that works. So we hit create, and this is my new spreadsheet. You can see the data that I just entered is already filled out. There's one more step that I'm going to show you guys in this particular spreadsheet right now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for it to continue to load. I'm going to go, well, let's change this first. So I don't want Form 1 responses to be the title of this tab. I want this tab to be named with my student's initials. So I just click there and type my student's initials and then click out, and it will name this tab with student initials. And I will show you how that works when we have multiple students. You'll see multiple tabs down along here. So now what I want to do is I want to insert a row below row number 1. And I'll show you why. The second thing I want to do is I want to lock the top 2 rows so that they don't change. To do that, you drag your mouse over this little gray line. Sometimes it's up here. At any rate, so when you see that little hand, click and hold, and then drag down and release. And what that does is that locks these 2 rows so they can't be changed. And I'll show you why that's important. So one of the advantages to these sheets is that they will automatically calculate your averages and percentages for you. So for like progress monitoring, you don't have to go back in and try and add up like all of this data that will come in here and average it to pull your scores. It will do that for you with this formula. So you're going to click here, and I want to hit the equals button because that tells it that I'm going to enter a formula. And what I want to enter is the average So it'll pull this up, click this, and it gives you this bracket here. And I want to average the cell C3 through all of C, so it will keep a running total. But I don't just want the average, I want it to calculate the percentage, and these would be like out of 100. So I'm going to divide by 100. If you have like a 7-point scale that you use, and the students can only get scores 1 through 7, instead of dividing by 100, you divide by 7. At any rate, so now that my formula is in, I hit enter, and then I want to change this to a percentage. So you can see with the data that we have present, the student is earning an average of 70%. You can also add tables and graphs to this so that you can have a visual of your students' progress, but for the purposes of this video, we won't do that because it gets more complicated. At any rate, so this is how our form functions. So let me show you. We're going to do another student, and I'll show you this again. So new, more, form, and then wait. So this student's initials are, I don't know, say BY, just because we can. Okay, and so once I've typed this in here, again, if you just click up here, it auto-populates. Okay, so same thing as before. You're going to fill out, this untitled question, change this to date, and then add your questions and sections, etc. So just like we did before, we're going to go over here to responses, click the green icon. Only this time we're going to go select existing spreadsheet. We want to select that option. So here's the spreadsheet, the student data responses. That's the spreadsheet that we just created a few minutes ago. We want to select that one and send it there, and I'll show you why. So now obviously this looks different up here because I haven't created any of those questions that, the benchmarks and stuff. The cool thing about doing this through Google is that when you do go back, and I can go back and edit that form, and when I add a new question, it will automatically enter it into the sheet. So now you see this is the student tab that we created the first time. This is the one that we just created. So I'm going to rename this tab by double clicking, and I will name this one with the student's initials again. So now you can see how this starts to look, and you can, however many kids you can have as many tabs down here as you want. So I will show you how that looks when you're going to look at your data. We'll get rid of all these tabs and I can go back in and show you. Okay, so remember I said that if you have your student data folder open, anything that you create will automatically create it in this folder. So automatically when it created that student data response spreadsheet, it put it in this folder, so it's really easy to find. So if we start from your drive, so if you need to look at your data, you start from your drive, you go into your data folder. Here's your spreadsheet, you open this. And then you wait for it to load. Oh, we are slow tonight. Usually I have to be on the school Wi-Fi for my computer to move this slow. Okay, so now you can see I can come to this one spreadsheet and toggle back and forth between as many student tabs as I want to, but all of my data is in one central location. Generally I go a step further, and if you click and drag these tabs, you can reorganize them, like arrange them. So obviously I usually do it alphabetically so that it's easy to find which student data I'm looking for. So I hope that that kind of gives you some idea um, on how forms and sheets can be used to keep track of student data. I will do another video on how to link documents like student work or whatever to these sheets here in just a few minutes.